Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the LAFCo meeting of May 2nd, 2024. First, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bolin,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Kimmelshoe, Chair Connolly,
Here.
Commissioner McGreehan,
Here.
Commissioner Duncan,
Here.
Commissioner Betts,
Here.
alternate Commissioner Rust,
Here.
alternate Commissioner Bradley, alternate Commissioner Ritter, alternate Commissioner Shepherd. Thank you.
Wow, mess over here. Next up is the approval of the minutes of April 4th, 2024. Is there any errors or changes or admissions by any commissioners? I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, next up is number 3, notice public hearings, review and consideration of final budget for fiscal year 2024-25.
Good morning, Commissioners. Yeah, you heard this item at your last meeting on April 4th, and the Budget Subcommittee had met in March to also recommend this budget. So today, we've already gone through all the items on the budget at our last meeting. This is a formality of adopting the final budget via this resolution. Unless you have new questions for me, I'm happy to pass this back to you for discussion, questions, and or adoption.
Any questions or comments? Anybody from the public like to speak on this matter? Is there any electronic comments on anything today?
No.
Okay. Well, I entertain a motion.
Move approval.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you kindly.
3.2, City of Warville Public Review Draft Municipal Service Review Update.
Okay, so today we are hearing and considering the much anticipated City of Warville Municipal Service Review. So I'm excited to get this in front of you and get it off our plate. So let's first talk about the purpose of this MSR. It's to inform future decisions regarding the City of Warville, more specifically any sphere of influence amendments that would come our way in the future. Our role as staff and a commission is to comprehensively analyze the services provided by the city and prepare written statements for each determination that's provided by the code. The determinations that come out of the MSR are not directory and often require further planning, study, or financial investment. Determinations are used to inform, as I said, future decisions. So any future application that comes to us from the city for an annexation, detachment, any sort of reorganization, we would reference this document to inform that decision. And just for information, no official sphere of influence amendment request has been made by the City of Orville at this time. So for the process for this MSR, the city came to us in early 2020. This was under a different council, a different internal leadership, and their intention at the time was to pursue annexation of the Thermalito area. So we basically told them, you would need to update your MSR, which had not been done since 2009. And so through a letter agreement, it was determined that they would select a consultant to complete the MSR. They did that in early 2020. The consultant then began collecting information. They do this by reviewing the previous MSR, reviewing the city's website, looking for information, including reviewing pre-existing plans and extensive interviews with city staff. Then, of course, comes what we all know happens in 2020. So the MSR gets delayed pretty significantly. This has a lot to do with COVID, just because we didn't have access to information. And there was a lot of staff turnover at the City of Orville. And then the consultant that was hired had a lot of delays personally. And so, as we've mentioned many times, the MSR was delayed a lot longer than we had anticipated. We do believe, though, that in the end, the city has made some pretty substantial improvements since 2020 that have resulted in a better document, a better MSR that represents the city of Oroville at this time. The draft document was received and updated by staff in late 2023 and then circulated to City of Oroville staff in early 2024. It's been available for public review since April 2nd. And yesterday, you should have all received an email with the only comment we received regarding the MSR, which was from Butte County staff. And in my opinion, the comment was inconsequential to the document. It stated that they want to continue to collaborate and work on their partnership for switching folks over from septic tanks to sewer system, which we all agree that is a good idea. Something a little bit different about this MSR is that we examine other matters related to this section is provided by Cortese Knox that we can examine other matters related to effective or efficient service delivery, which have not customarily been examined in prior MSR documents, but are unique to the circumstances of the agency. So this is sort of a new push in the Cal LAFCo realm for LAFCOs to start considering not the typical services provided by our agencies, but sort of look at what's unique to the agency. And if a service is being provided by the city that is unique, we can evaluate those. So for this MSR, we look specifically at disaster preparedness and mitigation, climate change adaptation, and affordable housing and homelessness. So I'll talk about that a little more. So let's talk about some changes that we've seen since the 2009 MSR. I think your staff report might refer a 2014 update, but the last MSR was done in 2009. As I've mentioned, that's 15 years ago. There's been lots of changes at the city of Oroville. So some of these are some more substantial changes, such as the annexation of the South Oroville area. This came almost at the same time of the adoption of the last, in 2015, the city adopted or annexed the South Oroville, or what is considered the South Side neighborhood. This was approximately 975 parcels and added 2,400 people to the city's population. Since this time, the city has invested a significant amount of money into this neighborhood. They inherited public infrastructure that was just not up to any sort of standard. So they've put money into public safety, public infrastructure improvements, building code safety upgrades. They do this through grants, through their own dollars, and through some pro bono work that they've been able to acquire. In 2019, the voters approved the 1% transaction use tax, known as Measure U. The purpose of that was, as is quoted, restoring, maintaining, and preserving public services, including police protection, fire suppression, vehicle repair and maintenance, finance, and human resource services within the city of Oroville. Income generated from Measure U continues to outperform what was anticipated. And because of the money brought in by this, the city's been able to invest in its vehicle fleet, restoring staff, buying new equipment. And you may have seen in the newspaper that the city has reported they are now fiscally solvent, which is they reported that at the State of the City just the other day. So that's great news. So again, while the city's finances continue to improve, they, of course, are faced with the same challenges as all of our agencies, which include unfunded pension contribution requirements and liabilities, which this is a very common thing for all of our agencies. And then, of course, in 2022, this commission approved the dissolution of the El Medeo Fire Protection District. And in 2023, the city began contracting its fire services with CAL FIRE. So this entire reorganization has allowed the city to streamline its fire protection services. It's removed any lines or confusion of jurisdiction, and overall has benefited its citizens with enhanced fire protection. Okay, so for this MSR, some of the main takeaways include the city, because of deferred, just due to budget constraints, it's deferred the update of several of its long-range planning documents. And in some cases has not implemented some of its existing documents. This includes an SOI update, comprehensive roadway condition assessment, master drainage plan, vacant parcel assessment. So many of these documents are listed in the MSR that would need to be updated prior to any SOI amendment or any large action taken by this commission. And I do know that they're currently, a lot of those documents are in progress. As I mentioned, the city continues not as strongly these days to look towards the annexation of the Thermalito area, knowing now what the investment that they've made in the South Side neighborhood. We know that any sort of annexation of the Thermalito neighborhood would involve significant study, financial contribution by the city. So that would need to be looked at pretty comprehensively. Again, the 2019 Measure U has brought in a sort of a padding for the city as far as their finances go. So since we last updated the MSR, their finances have improved greatly. And then the MSR does talk about some opportunities for reorganization. We saw earlier this year the MSR for water and sewer providers for the Orville area that did result in some determinations suggesting reorganization. The city does not provide water service to its citizens. That's provided by a combination of agencies, including Cal Water, South Feather Water and Power, and Twisted. So an option for reorganization does include the city supporting or participating in some sort of domestic water reorganization, potentially reorganization of sewer service. The city is a collection agency. They don't treat the affluent, but they could essentially turn over their sewer system to some sort of other collection agency. So that those determinations are consistent with the previously adopted MSR. They're just sort of regurgitated in this document. And then another option would be some sort of reorganization for recreation services with the Feather River Park and Rec District. There is a duplication of services provided as everybody who's in the city pays some sort of assessment to Feather River Park and Rec. So the recreation services provided by the city could be turned over to the recreation district through some sort of partnership or study. They have a really good working relationship right now. They work very cohesively. So, but we just like to document that kind of thing. That way, if in the future they decide to pursue something like that, we have it in the MSR. So as I talked about, we did discuss other matters that are unique to the city of Orville. So for disaster preparedness and mitigation, the city is, of course, vulnerable to multiple natural disasters, as we know, with the dam failure crisis, COVID-19, Camp Fire, North Complex Fire. So the city does participate actively in the preparedness and mitigation of natural regional planning efforts to prepare for and mitigate natural disasters. City Administrator Brian Ring is currently at a local hazard mitigation planning meeting. That's why he's not here today. So they do participate in regional planning efforts. And more locally, they do rely on plans adopted by the county, such as evacuation maps and flood maps for more specific types of natural disasters. For climate change adaptation, this is sort of just talking about how the city participates in state mandated programs to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, expand renewable energy generation, and reduce vehicle miles traveled. In 2015, the city produced and adopted a climate action plan, which was required by the state. But due to budget staffing and constraints, they weren't able to implement projects that were identified in the document or produce the status updates that were required on a, I think, bi-yearly basis. So because of that, today the cap is pretty much out of date. It's obsolete for them. So that's added to the list of documents that they'll need to update at some point. Affordable housing and homelessness. This is really an area where the city of Oroville does a really great job. It's important to recognize in the city their vulnerable populations and plan accordingly for various housing types for those individuals. The 2023 point in time survey shows that the city of Oroville has the second highest rate of homelessness in the county after the city of Chico, with 277 respondents reporting their housing status as unsheltered. And the median household income for the city of Oroville is $3,400 as compared to the statewide median household income, which is $78,000. So the city does a really good job of recognizing that unique population that they have here and have invested a considerable amount of time and money into various housing programs and options. This includes their housing element recently updated. They continue to seek grant money to invest in housing projects. They have various veteran support housing projects, housing for extremely low income households, senior housing projects, supportive housing for the mentally ill, a congregate pallet shelter, and of course, multiple general plan policies that support alternative types of housing. I think there's been something over 1,400 units in the past couple of years in the city of Oroville directed towards low or very low income households. So that's pretty exciting for them. So to conclude, generally, municipal services provided by the city of Oroville meet the needs of its residents. The proposal or this MSR substantially conforms to the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Local Government Reorganization Act of 2000 and with Butte LAFCo policy. And today I'm asking that you would adopt Resolution 04-2324, which includes that the project is exempt from CEQA guidelines, that the MSR satisfies state law, and if there are any changes recommended to the MSR, that you direct staff to prepare the final MSR, including those comments today. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. We do have City Planner Wes Irvin and Patrick Payette here today. So yeah. Any questions for me?
Questions or comments?
I have a few comments.
Yeah.
I'll try to go in order here. Regarding, let's see, on go to page 54, 55. There's a figure that's marked as figure 18, but in the text it says figure 19. That's just a
Okay.
minor thing. But below that, on page 57, there's a table like 3 pages long that shows potential development projects ongoing in the city. That's not referenced in the text anywhere, nor is that table has any kind of header on it saying what
okay.
that is. So
Okay.
that needs to make a connection somewhere as to what
Yes.
that is.
Yes.
Then on page 70, 71 regarding determinations 315 and 316. Basically it says, and this might be directed to Steve, but it an annexation plan that the city should develop. I think something a little more tougher instead of saying should.
Mhm.
I mean, that's, you know, I'm thinking along the lines of what we did with the city of Chico is basically we said, you need to do this.
Sure.
And we agree to that. LAFCO agrees to that before they implement it. You know, with maybe even with specific timelines. I know Thermalito area, it's big and there's a lot of moving parts over there, but I think those two determinations should be tightened up to, maybe we even say, City of Orville, you need to adopt this before we approve any more annexations in the Thermalito area. Maybe you have to have this annexation plan in place. That's just my thoughts on that. Then let's see, on page 77, with regards to the annual finance report, it uses information from the fiscal year 21-22 fiscal year, which is now well over, almost 2 years old now. And it looks like that report was completed in March 30th of 2023. So I'm assuming, I looked on the city's webpage, the latest fiscal report, which would be for fiscal year 22-23, is not available.
Yes, and or we had to just cut ourselves off at some point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering because
Hmm.
do we know if that fiscal report is going to be completed soon and you can go back in and redo
For
that? I would like to
23-24?
have the latest information.
We could ask Ruth.
Because
Do you-
we're looking at fiscal information that's now almost 2 years old and.
Yes,
yeah, it would
and
be
that's
nice to
even been
have it.
updated since the first version of the document. So,
Yeah,
um,
but then that would mean not approving it today.
yes.
We'd have to wait until that.
I could go back, yes, and grab the fiscal report for 23-24 if that's the desire of the commission. We went off what was available to us.
Right, I understand that.
Ruth, are you aware if that is available?
Yeah, the auditor said they would have it done by April 10th and they missed that
Okay,
deadline.
all right. So it's just not available at this time.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
So
that's
yes,
fine.
we-
And
yeah.
I think it's a very good report, very good MSR, very thorough,
Thank you.
very comprehensive.
Yeah.
So,
as far as the determination for annexation in the Thermalito area, I think at this point, it's sort of an unspoken, they understand and we understand that comprehensive analysis of this area is needed. But yes, we could modify a determination such that any annexation, because we did about 2 years ago, we annexed Ruddy Creek in the
We don't
Thermalito.
want to do is any more to the flag.
What's that?
Well.
Oh, yeah, add more to the
I-
flag, yeah.
I know everybody would like to see, I mean, on one side, they'd like to see Thermalito annexed, but that's too big a bite. The people in Thermalito do not want to be annexed, but it doesn't make sense to keep adding to the flag unless they at least take in a quarter along our dam.
Yeah.
That's what has to happen before, because then maybe that would justify I'm building another fire station and or police station out there because now the county's doing all that. Pretty much for first there.
Yes, they're responding to that area.
So it's just not rational growth. And then on the sewer, I know we can't say much about it, but it's pretty much low hanging fruit. There's no sense in having 4 sewer districts. You can call Score not a district, but it is.
Mhm.
And personally, on my side as an elected official, I'm gonna try and take that on and get the public aware
Mhm.
that it's duplication of services and it doesn't make sense. Water is more complicated. It'll take longer. We have a private company, well-established,
Mhm.
and don't have cooperative boards that I've heard from either of the other agencies that would like to combine. So, but the sewer, I think we should take on. And I know we can't. I wish we had, LAFCo had enough law behind us. We could just call an election for dissolution and combination of all the agencies into one.
The city of Orville is basically surrounded. They are not extending their sewer line any further because they're
But it just
surrounded by
doesn't make sense. You got 3 camera trucks,
Yes.
3 main guys.
Yes, agree.
You know, 3
Mhm.
3 main guys, secretaries, and you could do it through attrition. I mean, as growth comes, you could dissolve it by attrition, meaning nobody has to lose their job or whatever they think. The boards, it's crazy to have that many boards running around. That's my comments. There's nothing you can put in there. Great job.
Thank you.
Great job. There's nothing you can change in there by law. We can't call an election or do any of
Yeah.
that.
It's documented multiple times, so it's definitely
I
supported.
have a
So,
couple minor comments. In the staff report on page 6, It highlights some of one of the determinations from the MSR, determination 13-1. I think there's a typo in the context of that
Okay.
determinations text, and I hope it's not that way in the MSR. I don't recall because it's 180 pages long. It was a long read. And then also in the staff report on page 7, under conclusion, the last paragraph, I think that's a carryover from a prior staff report. It references the executive officer recommending approval of the Paradise Irrigation District.
Yes, darn.
So,
I still recommend that.
Darn
that's fine,
it.
that's fine, but anyway, I just wanted to point that out. And
Thank
just
you.
a general comment. I agree with my colleagues here. I think it's an excellent.
Yeah,
it's
it's really,
really-
it was
well
easy
done.
read too.
It was easier to read, very comprehensive and enlightening in a lot of ways. I do have a general question that's probably directed to the Oroville representatives, unless you know the answer, but I need to be educated. Measure U that was passed, is that in perpetuity or does it have a
No
sunset date or anything like that?
No sunset.
date.
No sunset.
Okay, good,
Great.
good to know.
That's good. Yeah.
Has to go through another election to be.
Good. Well, I kudos to the
Mhm.
the electorate there, because I think it was long overdue and it's helping, I'm sure.
Is it the desire of this commission that the determination be edited to state that no further annexations in the Thermalito area would be completed until further study is done?
I think on the flag, I think that would be fair. I mean, if it's contiguous
Okay.
to existing city limits, but on the flag out there, that's terrible.
Okay.
It might,
So you can't take all thermally at once. That's not, I just know
Yes.
too many people out there, too many
There-
relatives. But you could take a corridor or something.
Yeah, we've seen images of their
If the
proposed
commission agrees.
sections. They've got Thermalito North, Thermalito South, Wilbur Road. They've got it split up into, and it's sort of an internal vision of what they see for happening for Thermalito. So perhaps we could encourage them to move forward with the adoption of that plan and document so that we can base our decision
Yeah.
off of it.
25 years ago, maybe longer, I walked Nelson and talked people into annexing because I wanted to do the roofs. Chip project. So it can be done, but you gotta have to educate people.
Mhm.
I might suggest if I could, just for simplicity on determination 3-15 under the annexation plan, which is on page 4 of your staff report. Last sentence, future annexation proposals for vacant or undeveloped territory submitted to the city, the word should be replaced with shall be
Mhm.
reviewed within the context, thus requiring the city to do so. And then in determination 3-16, just below it, the city again replace should with shall develop a comprehensive annexation plan. And in the second sentence, the creation of the annexation plan, again, replace should with shall, include public outreach to affected communities and agencies well in advance of adoption of future annexations, and add the language such as Thermalito, just to make it clear that Thermalito is really the focus of the annexation plan. And I think with those additions, we address Mr. Beth's
Mhm.
comments and without changing our determinations greatly. If that's okay, that's just a suggestion.
I'd like to ponder a question, maybe bear with my ignorance here, but I realize LAFCo doesn't have the legal authority to strongly initiate consolidation of multiple service entities and so forth, but can a comment be made in an MSR relative to Oroville, relative to the lack of consolidation of water and sewer services, that maybe that future annexation should not be seriously looked at unless there is a strong effort for those consolidations? I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking out of
I
turn.
think you can have legal. I don't think we have the power.
Oh, well, LAFCO itself reorganizations, but depending on the circumstance, there may be a lower protest. But it's a major task and you'd have to probably do a specific
Study.
report on it before you could proceed with that.
And it gets complicated when there's just so many service providers that if the city wants to annex in the Thermalito area, Thermalito Water and Sewer is who's going to provide them water, but the city provides them sewer. and then some areas it's Thermalito through a city-owned line. And so it gets complicated to hold up projects that don't exclusively affect the city when we all know that Thermalito should be the service provider. So it adds a level of complication to hold up.
If I might,
There's not a financial incentive to help promote these things, consolidations.
Right.
Well, there is on the development side because
Right.
it's just not as efficient.
just if I might add a reference to this. So for most of you who have been, or some of you who were around when we went through this issue with the city of Chico sewer connections and annexation plans, we played some pretty strong cards up into and including authorizing me to file lawsuit against the city to seek action. Now, this was an entirely different situation in terms of what the city had done, city of Chico had done. But nonetheless, this commission was very, very strong with the city there to tell them, we want your sewer problem fixed before we consider future annexations, which we ended up getting through the island annexation plan, worked out brilliantly in the end. We didn't necessarily knew that at the beginning, but the ongoing pressure applied by the commission, I don't think we're there with the city. The city of Oroville has not done something wrong, if you will, like the city of Chico did in connecting people illegally to their sewer system. This is something where they want to advocate for something. We're just not quite there yet. And we don't have a real strong issue to sort of drive a wedge, if you will, and to get the city to do it. Now, having said that, legally under Cortez Knox, what Shannon has done in this report is extensively discuss the issue, which gives us the legal foundation for which to pursue a reorganization down the road. As long as it's addressed within the MSR, it's not as relevant as to how strongly it's worded, just as long as it's represented there as an option. So I believe between that and our insistence, and this discussion alone would probably inspire the city to move forward as we suggest. But if they don't, we never lose the opportunity to tell the city as staff in behalf of the commission that an annexation is premature until certain things are done. And if they want to submit that application without taking our comments into heed, then we find that incomplete and we will not support that annexation. So we never lose our ability to leverage that. But I hear your point though, and I think this discussion should be loud and clear to the city that this is what we want. This is what we want to see.
Right. Well, again, no reflection on Oroville. I think I commend Oroville.
Right.
They're really moving in a positive direction. But let me ask this question, just ponder it. Does prior Butte County grand juries, are they knowledgeable and aware of the need for consolidation of service entities such as water and sewer in the Oroville area?
I'm not allowed to answer that
Okay,
question.
that's fine.
Nor am I.
Our staff can tell me.
Well, I will tell you that I also have certain restrictions as to what I can say with respect to the
That's
grand
fine,
jury.
okay.
But I will say that I am aware, just generally speaking, that the grand jury has heard of this issue. What they're going to end up doing or how they do it, I can't speak to that, but it is definitely on the radar.
And we now, in addition to this MSR, have the sewer and water MSR, which we know extensively discusses how water and sewer services are provided in the Oroville region. And that document, I would not be surprised if it's used regionally. It is such a full document with so much information in it. It basically explains step by step how we could achieve something like that. And so it's not as heavily discussed in this MSR because the sewer and water MSR so thoroughly discusses that option. So as Steve said, it's there, the information's there. It's just who's the entity to come forward to make it happen.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
And then if you guys have any questions for city staff, they're available as well.
Questions?
Did the
Would you
city-
guys like to talk at all?
Anything to add?
Good morning.
Morning. Very briefly, my name is Wes Irvin. I'm the city planner, as Shannon has mentioned, and our community development director, Pat Pyatt, is here as well. And apologies for our city administrator not being here. We have, I'll just say that I think that the MSR and all the discussion has been quite thorough and quite reasonable. And so
You're a blessing,
all we
to
have to
Oroville.
say.
Thank you. What do you know? We got some common sense in Oroville. What are we doing here? Would you like to speak, sir? Good morning.
Morning. I also feel it was a great report. I read the whole thing and made minor comments. It was really thorough. Being new to the area was educational for me as well, so that was pretty great. And I have no angst or anxiety about the direction that you're kind of put forward. I knew that before I even read the port that LAFCo wanted us to annex Thermalito before we started annexing other areas. I just want to put out there that it is a really heavy lift, and we have a housing crisis, not of affordable housing like most of the state has, but of market rate housing. And so I would like to have possibly some consideration for that and I did understand also they talked about the corridor and maybe not annexing the entire area, but there's a lot of work that has to be done up there, and we have a lot of cleanup to do in South Side, the storm drains, the streets, street lights, sidewalks and all that stuff. So we still have a lot of cleanup that's very expensive to do down in that area. To take on a whole nother area would be very difficult and challenging for us financially and for the human resources that we have to work on those things. So I think that I do like the approach that was mentioned, that we can maybe look at doing the corridor and having portions of that done as we start to annex out into further to the west, because that area is, it's important to us for our goals of having market rate housing to house the techs, nurses, and doctors that are coming to the hospital. Is there 700 of them, as I understand, plus many of them are already commuting from Roseville and Rockland, Roseville and Rockland, coming, all the way up to here. They're sending buses down there for them daily to bring them up here. And we have some other industries that are coming also that will also need market rate housing. So I would just, as we start to move forward with that, just have that be kept in mind. And
I just
work
want
with
to
us.
clarify, we weren't saying you can't annex contiguous to the city. We're just saying, what I'm trying to clear, we don't want to add to that flag out there till we have some rational fix.
I did understand that. And I agree with that also. It makes
And
sense.
market rate housing, you could have gave my last speech somewhere. Because absolutely, we're in need of it, and absolutely everything you said, probably 70% of our professionals commute in and out, and so they're not contributing to the community,
Right.
and so it's very important. I think LAFCO is supposed to look at rational growth, and that's all we're trying to do here.
I agree. And I do appreciate the comment about the corridor and annexing maybe in
A little
manageable
bit.
bites or something like that into Thermalito.
Over there, I go talk to her.
We'll need block captains when that time comes, so maybe she'll do that for us.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Has the Oroville City Council been apprised of this report or made knowledgeable of it?
They know that the report is in the works. I don't believe it's not been presented to the council, right, Shannon? It's not. Yeah. Yeah, we have not presented it to the council.
So perhaps after we approve it, maybe the council could be apprised.
That'd be
accordingly.
appropriate for the council to understand what's in the report.
Or at least highlight some of the key determinations, that type of thing.
Give them the highlights, right?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Just 2 comments, one from Mr. Pye. We just want to make sure that you have it.
Right. I did understand that. Yeah, thank you, Steve.
And the second part is just.
Any other public comment? Morning.
Hi, Commissioner and Chairman. My name is Shannon McGovern. I work for Cal Water. we provided pretty extensive information to the commission about some of the inconsistencies in the original draft MSR provided by the consultants, and we stand by those our comments and the information that we provided to staff. That being said, I really want to commend them for being accessible and communicating really well with us, accepting a lot of the information that we provided and incorporating that into their work. And while we still have some concerns about the current draft, we're really looking forward to sharing more information with LAFCo and the agency and staff. We actually have a tour of our facility to explain better our operations, what our requirements are, how we're structured, how our rates are structured, some of the benefits that we offer to the community. We're a proud partner with the other two agencies and the city of Oroville to provide safe, clean drinking water, and we look forward to serving our customers in the city of Oroville. So that tour and information is scheduled for next month. And I encourage any of you that would like to participate in the discussion and learn a little bit more to join us. Thanks very much.
Any other public comment? Close public comment. Do we have enough notes to pass this today? Any other comments by board members? I'll entertain a motion.
So adopting there's, I think, a sample recommended motion in there today that includes adopting the resolution, directing me to update the municipal service review, including the comments provided today, and adopt this as the final municipal service review for the city of Oroville.
And with the corrections,
Yes.
2, 3, determination 315.
Yep, I got them all written down.
So motion.
So moved.
Give me a second. Come on, you're trained up now, aren't you? Who wants to do the second?
I'll second. You guys are way ahead of me on this stuff, so I'm impressed.
I think they did a great job.
Yeah,
We did.
very much.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Everybody, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Okay.
Mhm.
If, Mr. Connolly, if I could make just 2 quick comments on this. First, I just want to say that the document that includes this language that Ms. Costa talked about with the hazard mitigation issues and homelessness and climate change, this is cutting edge sort of stuff from the MSR perspective. And your staff has made several, including Mr. Connolly, several presentations to LAFCo in the last couple of years about impacts due to climate change and natural hazards. But I think this MSR is maybe the first one in the state to actually fully incorporate those concepts into the MSR. And I want to give Shannon a lot of credit for that. We went round and round on how to do it, and she won. But but I want you guys to know that we will share this now around the state because other LAFCOs are curious how to integrate this language in this type of information. And then the generic comment is just, I also want to give Shannon, let you guys know that the credit she deserves. She took this on midstream in the middle of a lot of stuff. And this was really the first MSR brought forth to fruition. And as you said, it's a great document. So I just want to make sure you understand how much her fingers are all over this document.
Good job.
Mhm. Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to our regular agenda. There's nothing removed from consent. Draft investment policy. Got it.
Sure.
So this is a follow-up conversation from our April 4th meeting where this commission voted to
Thank you.
agendize. This commission voted to agendize further discussion about investing a portion of this agency's reserve funds outside of the county treasury for the purpose of realizing a higher rate of interest. So what I've been doing over the past 4 weeks is basically looking into what that means for us. I've learned a lot about how and where that we can invest some of our dollars. And so what I'm hoping to get from you today is some further discussion and some direction. I have provided a draft policy. This comes from basically, it's a compilation. It's sort of a standard policy used by other LAFCOs throughout the state. It covers the investment objectives that are required by state law, that we prioritize safety of principal, liquidity, prudence, and return on investment. So it's a pretty standard policy. So what I'm looking for you from you today, if you have any questions, if we can open the conversation about where we'd like to invest, if we'd like to pursue investment, and if you would like to pursue adoption of the policy, that would basically give staff the power to move forward and look into and either begin an investment or return back to you with further education and information about what we've discovered. As I said, I've learned a lot in the past 4 weeks about investments and just how we are able to do it. It's difficult to know exactly what sort of rate of return we can get right today because we're a government agency, so our dollars have to be fully backed either by the FDIC or fully collateralized by a bank that we choose. And so because of that, they invest our dollars more conservatively and therefore offer us maybe a lower rate of interest than as if you or I walked into a bank today and opened a CD at 4.75. It's not the case for us. It's going to be a little bit different. So what I would like to do with your direction is to essentially put out an RFP to financial institutions to introduce ourselves as a potential new customer, find out what their rate of return would be if we were to invest some dollars, and then potentially move forward with that investment if it's your desire.
What kind of dollars we talking about?
We have available, so we have discussed using our reserve funds. As you know, our reserve fund that is required to be, or policy states that we maintain a reserve fund of 50% of our adopted budget. So we have that now. We've been investing $25,000 every year and it's fully funded. So at a minimum, a conservative amount of money we would have is that reserve policy, which we sit on. It's available to us if there's a lawsuit or some sort of unexpected emergency that we would need to spend a chunk of money on. It's otherwise untouched. It's not part of our daily budget. So at a minimum, we have that amount of money. We do have a fund balance from previous budget years up to about $1 million.
So to be clear, the amount of money that we have available is, it could be potentially up to all of our existing fund balance. Although that would be, of course, getting into some operational issues in terms of that money. So what we're really looking at is just focusing it on that revenue source, that is our reserve fund, which is approximately $500,000. And as Shannon pointed out, what we would end up most likely having to do is put it into 2 or 3 instruments separately so that each one remains fully insured. And there's other ways to go, as you pointed out, because there's many things we could do. But I think today what we really just want to say is there was interest. We think it's workable. We discussed it with people. Shannon did a lot of research. We talked to our own independent auditor who does our personal audit. We didn't find any red flags. So at this point, the policy that we're suggesting, my suggestion, and it's same as her recommendation, which is let us bring those back in June after you've given some time, if you feel like doing it, thinking about it, and we would bring it back as an actual policy adoption in a more formal process. But go ahead. I'm
So
sorry.
you do it internally, you wouldn't have a third party
To
to
do the
invest the monies and stuff like that?
no. It's
No, we would not have an agent who then acts as our,
right.
and that's particularly why I'm more interested in pursuing the CD route, is that I don't want to have to manage a complex investment. It's difficult. It's for people who are experienced in this sort of thing. A CD is a nice, safe place that you don't have.
Well,
to
as you
manage.
learned, I mean, there are very strict guidelines.
Yes.
With government funds. I mean, it is high interest rate. There is no high interest rate in what we can do.
Yeah, and
It's absurd. Right now, it's higher than it was 2 years ago, but
you may have all received from Troy Kidd the most recent report, his quarterly report. that the Butte County investment portfolio yield to maturity date as of March 2024 is 3.36. So of course, we would only be interested in pursuing something that could yield us a higher rate than 3.36. Otherwise, there's no point in us doing it. I don't know that we would quite get the 4.75 that's offered to what they call real money or just any sort of regular old consumer off the street, but potentially somewhere in between that we could get that a better rate than what's in the treasury right now.
Just in an aside, one of the benefits of going the CD route, for instance, is that it's a fixed term. We know exactly when that's going to mature. We don't, we can turn it over or we can pull it out. So we're not stuck with something that's an ongoing investment scheme, if you will. And scheme's probably a terrible word to use.
Well, they have a lot of hidden overhead too.
Right. So what we'd really like to do is just be for the commission who has been extraordinarily conservative with your money and with the public's money is that we'd like to come back to you and say, here's this, it's a 1-year term. It's a 6-month term. This is your guaranteed return. This is when it's over. And that money rolls back into our fund. If we want to reinvest it, so be it. But it's a much cleaner, to me, it's a much cleaner and simpler process, but boy, do we take your comments seriously, Greg. It's there's a lot going on here, but Shannon has really done her effort to go out and look for things that we think we can do both legally and it makes sense for us
But
organizations.
you're not planning on coming back to the commission every time you redo a CD. I mean,
Oh,
you
no.
just, okay, thank you.
No,
Go ahead.
no.
No,
So does the board agree it's direction to bring it back next month? We good with that? I have head nods.
I got a couple comments.
Yeah.
Well, you can't. Go ahead.
Under E, under reporting, the executive officer shall submit an annual report to the commission showing, but I think the commission should see that more often.
Okay,
Either semi or quarterly, just so we know more up to date, something could be
Just
occurring
transparent.
within that 1 year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't adopted it yet. We're being asked to
Yeah, that's,
revisit this in
Yeah.
June, but.
yes.
But
That'd be
as
transparent.
part of that discussion, before we adopt it, your comments well taken, but
Mhm.
we might have a dialogue that tells us how conservative they're going to be with these investments. If it's ultra conservative, we may not have a necessity to have quarterly reports necessarily. It might be a very, not a plethora.
yeah, if we have a
of-
set term where you
Right.
can't take the money out, then we
Right.
know what it is gonna be,
Right.
yeah. But if it's various CDs and
So-
whatnot,
So while to be clear on our comment, we would certainly go out and do this and not require the commission to involve themselves, but to your comment, Mr. Bowen, but we would certainly, if we purchased one, we would be on our staff report that very next meeting, letting you know exactly what it is we purchased, its term, its rate, and its return on investment. If you wanted us to follow up on that, but as you pointed out, since that's a fixed period and we're going to accumulate that interest regardless, there's really nothing we can do internally or externally to affect it. We would certainly tell you about it, let you know where your investments are. And then the annual report is simply letting you know aggregately what all those were, where they are in their terms. If you want that quarterly, it's not terrible to do either. So we can do it any way you want. But that's what I foresee. This is not going to be like a fluctuating thing where you're constantly seeing reports every month with different numbers. We expect it to be a fixed number, fixed return, fixed amount.
And if the commission so desires, they could just direct staff just to report to a standing committee, like the budget committee necessarily throughout the year.
We could do that.
Investments.
And like, for example, current CDs are most institutions right now are offering a 4.75 annual percentage yield for a 7-month CD. So not all of them go for, it's just the feds are going to probably lower the interest rate this year. And so they're being a little more conservative, not issuing a year because it's safer to do 7 months, because if they lower the interest rate, then they're giving away money after the 7-month period. So it changes all the time. So potentially next month I could come back to you with a 4.2 CD for 6 months or 1 year. It just is so volatile depending on what's happening with the federal interest rates.
Fed said yesterday they're not lowering.
That's right.
Well, okay,
That was in today's
Right.
newspaper.
okay.
So we might be good for another year.
and Steve, you said you talked to the person that does our audits.
Mhm.
Did they have any concern with staff moving money around without any other controls?
So that's a great question. And that was primarily what we were concerned with talking to her is just from an end, at the end of the year, what does an auditor look at and making sure that we did not violate any particular transparency rules or respond, whatever those things are. And her indication was that with a policy in place that tells us what we're doing and how to do it, and then a report out to the commission, which is all in this policy, she felt that was an adequate safeguard.
Good.
Nothing in here is really giving us permission to go freelance. But it's an excellent question. But she felt like that she would be able to track those numbers and effectively legally report out in our annual audits as to their.
Similarly, the district I'm with, we did the same thing. We adopted an investment policy first. Then once that was adopted, then we made some initial investments, and then the investments themselves just became part and parcel of the monthly report from the district manager, which we could do similarly here with the executive director.
Correct.
Dan provided me with a substantial
Oh,
amount of
okay.
information, so he's very helpful
I sensed that.
in getting me there. As was
Mr.
CARD
Betts,
and other
You
agencies.
get all your comments?
I did, thank you.
Anybody else have any comments? All right.
What do you need from us?
I just asked that you would give me staff direction to move forward with a final version of the investment policy, and for me to further investigate investment as an investment vehicle. At this point, it looks like it's going to be a CD. I can return back to you at our June meeting with what those numbers are going to look like. And then at that meeting, you can essentially adopt the policy and give permission to pursue that investment if that's what you're interested
You need that in a motion?
in. Or you could,
You want the
yes, in
current?
some way.
Yeah, we have the head nods. You're good to go.
Sufficient.
So directed.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna move on now. This time we have public comment. Oh,
Well, you don't.
you don't want to talk, do you? You talk about the Giants or something?
3 minutes.
Okay.
Please don't.
Uh, Executive Officers Report.
Thank you. I'll go through this quickly. These are just some interesting things that your staff has been up to, and you're always been so kind and clear about your direction to get involved in as many things as possible that may help us. So this first one is just letting you know that I was working with this group called the Aoki Water Justice Clinic at UC Davis. It was a former colleague of ours at the LAFCo level. He was retired. He was working with them, and he could no longer do it and made a strong recommendation to them that they call me. So I ended up talking to them, and mostly it's about water consolidations and future sewer consolidations and how they're looking at that as a legal issue. What really is important about this, less than me helping them, is that this is highlight this, and it's the very last sentence here. When the State Water Board goes in to force a consolidation, they just look at the permittee. That's it. They are not looking at the entire regional basis of anything. They're just looking at one agency and how to get them water. What LAFCo brings to the table is the rest of the picture to make sure that anything else that needs to be done is also done to make this not just one efficiency, but multiple efficiencies. And State Water Board just doesn't yet seem to get that. But this group, I will continue to work with them. And it's interesting for me too, because I learn new things in the process. Also, I attended a presentation implementation of Sigma, where Mr. Kimmelshoe, who's not here today, but also was on that panel talking about where the GSAs are and how they're moving forward. It was a really good update. Real short, sweet takeaway is Butte County's doing great. Our GSAs are doing fine. We are so far ahead of the curve in so many ways. It doesn't mean we don't have a lot of work to do, but it just means we started almost 20 years ago in this county getting this squared away. And the downside, the other takeaway is, as you've probably all read by now, is the State Water Board has suspiciously put on notice several water districts, GSAs within the Central Valley. And they're now been essentially taken over by DWR to move forward. They've lost their ability to do it on their own, if you will. State oversight was promised, it was threatened, it was assured, and it came. And they're going to have to now fix their plan. And if they don't, they're going to be paying some significant penalties and fees and whatnot. I don't want to get into that. That's all on. It was a 12-hour meeting. So thankfully you're not on the State Water Board, or you would have had to sit through all of that. Anyhow, I just wanted to bring that to your attention. We have interaction with our local GSAs to the extent that we have districts that are also participating. So I will continue to monitor that as well. This is just sort of a novelty one. I got out of nowhere, got an email from some place called Clear Rights. Apparently they want to do a movie in Paradise on the fire. It's going to be called Jiminy, starring Matthew McConaughey, for any of you ladies out there. I know it's a terrible thing to say. But we have a map that they wanted to use, and apparently they needed our legal permission to use it, which I'm not sure why, but I granted it.
Do we get credits?
Yeah, in the movie.
At the end of
I'll
the
make sure
movie?
you're at the book signing. Other items moving forward, special projects, Tuscan Water District. I just wanted, this is brand new, and I won't do this every month, but I just want to let you know they're up and running. They're doing they're really going out of their way to be as public and as transparent as you might imagine. That after the 2 years of struggle they went through, they are really doing a good job getting their feet underneath them, moving towards the first year of conditions, most notably the revenue assessment. Like I said, I just really want to bring home drive home the point that their meetings are open, folks are coming, their agendas are on their website, so they're making progress, and we hope that they get through this revenue measure successfully by the end of this coming February. I will continue to work with them, obviously, very closely through that process. This is mostly for Mr. McGrean. Tuscan Ridge PUD, which I have talked about on and off for a while. It was hot and heavy, and then it kind of fell off. Well, the update, Mr. McGrean, is that the draft DIR is ready to be released any day now. That's the best I can give you on the outcome of where they are. And when I get it, we will be reviewing it and offer comments. It may be a significant enough issue to some of you that you might want me to bring it back for you to weigh in as well. But when we get there, I'll bring it forward, and you can tell me what your preference is. We will review it either way. But I know that some of you have had a lot of very specific questions about that and what it affects, how it might affect your agency. So I want to make sure I get all of your input. The Gridley area water districts, what's new there is our deputy executive officer Shannon Costa prepared a draft letter agreement. It's actually, I'll let Shannon fill you in on where the latest is. She knows it better than I do.
Yes, the draft agreement is in its final draft version, and it's been distributed to the irrigation districts who they've all approved of it. It's now in the hands of the city of Gridley for their final approval. And I'm not sure if Steve mentioned at the last meeting, but we now have buy-in from the city of Biggs. They will now participate in the agreement as well as Drainage District 1 and Reclamation District 2056. So it's now turned into a much bigger agreement than we had started with, but it's very well supported, and I anticipate adoption of it by the districts within the next month or so. So it'll be hopefully completed. And then of course we will bring it to this commission for their review because we're a signer on the agreement as well.
Next up is LAFCo issues. Just two things real quick. One is I have been working along with 3 other executive officers from around the state, one from each region, North, South, Central, and Mountains, with a group from University of California, Berkeley, Division of Agricultural and Natural Resources Department. They created a white paper, which I've attached to your work because I think it's an interesting read, at least for me. This paper discussed the water system fragmentation and what the state water board is doing. And essentially the conversation with this group of folks who, now these are sort of academics, if you will, but they really took to heart the comments that LAFCo providers offered them, and in that this is a very, very myopic view of this problem. And that this, from a LAFCo or LAFCo perspective, this is not the appropriate way to go about solving these problems with these fragmented water systems. The way to solve it is to go through a LAFCO process that fully evaluates it and all the agencies that are affected, and you come up with a regional reorganization plan that addresses all this, but that's not how the State Water Board has decided to go.
Well, if I might add, it's the legislature.
True.
And the governor's office. I mean, they go out killing flies with sledgehammers. They got to solve a problem, so they empower the wrong people. When LAFCO's right here and we remind them over and over, use us. We'll do an MSR. We'll figure out what's going on. Who needs to consolidate the whole thing? But they go around us and then they create these issues.
How do you really feel?
Well, that's the way it was when I was running LAFCO. I don't know how it is right now, but
No,
we
I
brought it
will.
up a lot.
So why this matters, other than it's just calling it out as an academic paper, is a lot of legislation, bills that are proposed start with academic papers that have been written about a process and why it's failing or not doing well. And then they reach out and then some legislator gloms onto that. And next thing you know,
Yeah.
somebody submits it as a bill. We're hopeful that this maybe be our vehicle to get something in front of the state legislature that'll put LAFCO's back in charge. The paper, if you read it, it's pretty clear that this is not the best way to go. And UC Berkeley's Division of Natural Resources has been pretty prominent in legislation over the years in terms of moving things forward. So we'll see how that shakes out, and I'll give you updates on it as we go. I just want to say we just had the staff workshop, which is an annual workshop. It's just for staff. The annual workshop's coming up in October, so keep that in mind. It was just this past week down in Pleasanton. I'll just tell you my perspective. All three of us were there, so let them all talk about it. It was a really good conference workshop, well attended. Ms. Costa put on 2 sessions. I'll let her talk about those because I think they were both well received. Other than that, it was just a workshop where my takeaway was this. Once again, as those of you who have attended the conferences, this LAFCO is right up at the top of on the cutting edge of things to be done. This is a common scenario. People ask questions, something will come up. No one knows how to do it. It'll turn out that it's something we've probably already done at some point. And I'll just give her props because she won't say this herself, but it was clear from around the room. Shannon's only been here for 4 years, and in 4 years, she probably knows as much as most of the EOs out there who've been doing that job for longer. And I say that because we get involved. They're not getting involved as much, so we've had a lot greater opportunity in the last 4 years. I've given Shannon just about every project because you've been looking at the agenda, so that she would get as much under her belt as possible. And thankfully, that's what I'm hearing. I heard from around the from the workshop was, wow, you guys are always out there doing things. And how does Shannon know all this stuff already? Well, it's because we're busy. No, anyhow, I'll stop at that. I'll let Mr. Brown talk if he has any comments about the workshop.
We had a very nice.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, believe me, it was government related.
Yeah. They have an interesting problem. Requires sewer. And so the issue is, how do they get sewer for these tourist services without annexing to the city? And that's was the issue we discussed at the, we actually worked at the winery along with having a glass of wine. And we talked about various ways that they could do that. One of the ones I suggested for them was setting up a subsidiary district of the city of Livermore that could extend into these wine growing regions and provide sewer service without annexation to the city. These are the kinds of innovative ideas that they hadn't considered themselves, and which we get here at Butte because we think about things a lot.
We talk about things. Shannon?
Sewer to Bangor, sewer to Bangor.
Shannon, would you like to offer anything on your 2 sessions?
No, I mean, I did something a little bit different. The opening session for the entire workshop was, I did a trivia session. So I had contestants, which were fellow executive officers, and it was basically a LAFCO 101 session, lots of history, California history, but just presented in a way that was a little different, more fun, exciting, and I think it was well received, and I know from feedback that others folks gave me was that it got them thinking about how they could present information differently. There's only so much to talk about in the LAFCO world, and we're kind of at a place where we've had the sessions over and over. So how can we present them differently that gets people excited about it? And so that was probably the best feedback that I got. And then my second session was a technical writing session about how to present information in an informative and an informative way that presents it was just technical writing in general, and I was lucky enough to have my sister come and present that. She is an internal auditor for Sacramento Utility District, SMUD, down in Sacramento. So she is a writing guru, and she also received very good feedback from that session. So yeah, it was good. It felt good. And to be honest, I do these sessions because I have a short attention span and I like to stay busy while I'm there. And so it's fun for me to be able to do them.
That's all I have for you this morning. That's new.
Any
Guess you have
course-
questions for me?
Any correspondence?
No, sir.
All right, we're going to be adjourned till Thursday, June 6th, right here. Class dismissed.